start the session, I would like to welcome one of our the two special guests. So we have with us Professor Benoit, who is the Associate Dean for the MBA program at ESCP. Professor Benoit is also a professor in the marketing department and teaches across brand management, design management, and consumer behavior. So a big welcome to you, Professor Benoit.
Thank you very much for organizing this masterclass. And we are very honored to host Sylvain Bureau today, with a star professor at ESCP. He is one of the professor in the program. He maybe will tell a little bit more about what he's teaching within the program. So we are very happy to welcome Sylvain Bureau, my friend and colleague, today. Thank you so much, Sylvain. It's an honor for us.
Thank you for your invitation.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And that's a very good segue into, of course, you, Professor, as well. So again, thank you for organizing and leading this master class today. I'm sure the audience members are very curious to learn about AI and versus artistic intelligence. But a very quick introduction, just for the sake of our audience, about you, that how Professor Sylvain explores the similarities between creative practices in the worlds of science, art, and businesses. And your research, of course, through your research, you have developed art thinking, which is a method that you use in different seminars, and of course you teach across the Atlantic and other parts of the world as well. So again, a big welcome and a big thank you to you for today's session. And now over to you to take us through what looks like a very, very interesting masterclass.
Thank you so much. Maybe just to start, I'd like to share with you one number. So I don't know if you know why 206. Actually, that's the age of ESCP Business School. ESCP was created in 1819, more than 200 years ago. So you can imagine how we had to change in terms of what do we teach and how do we teach. And with the diffusion of artificial intelligence, this is a very big question for us. You know, what are we supposed to teach? And myself, I had also experienced a journey. So at the beginning, I was a lot about information technologies and businesses. And I developed a PhD on the diffusion of web technologies and their impact on jobs and occupations. I apprehended that also through the lens of entrepreneurship and how startups can diffuse new business models and new solutions. But along the way, and for some reasons, I ended up more and more working in relation with art. So originally, I had no connection with art. My closest connection with art was martial art. So I started to do judo, aikido, French boxing. Today, I'm doing Thai boxing. And I'm very bad at drawing and playing the Pictionary. So this is the best picture you can find from myself. Obviously, my mom was very proud of me, but that was it. So if you are not close to art, if you have no specific capacity in drawing, you will still be fine. So don't be afraid. So what happened is during a French wedding, in the southwest of France, you have this very weird tradition, which is a danse de la brioche, bakery dance. I met an artist, and it was probably the first time I really discussed with an artist, and I realized through the discussion with Pierre Tectin, a very interesting artist, a French one, that what he was doing was not so far from what I was observing studying entrepreneurs. So we started a collaboration. And more and more, I was into art. I was into art history. I was working with artists. I was working with museums, galleries. And now that's my common practice. And I'm going to explain why I believe that this is more and more important to do so. So we created this seminar, as explained in this introduction, that we label the Art Thinking Seminar, or the Improbable Seminar. So everything started at ESCP, but along the way, more and more people wanted to do the same. And we shared our practices with different companies, with different universities and schools in France and abroad. And the talk that I'm going to share with you is a bit about that, and to explain why also we launched a year ago a chair, which we called the Improbable Chair, with the support of Galeries Lafayette. Because they also believe that creation is central in our economy, is central in our society, and is central to understand because of the diffusion of machines, especially generative AI. So my work more and more, working with artists, researchers, and entrepreneurs, is about this connection between, this artificial intelligence on one side and artistic intelligence on the other side. So today, I'm going to introduce you briefly some of the key challenges that I'm trying to apprehend. This is work in progress, and I'm very happy to have your comments and questions at the end of this presentation. So first, we're going to try to understand, machines versus human creativity. What can we say in a sort of match between the two sides? Then we're going to see, why we need to define creativity better, and how you can find a method, the art thinking method, which can be a sort of new social algorithm to boost another AI artistic intelligence. So let's start. So here there was an experiment developed by researchers to try to understand who are the best at creativity. So they compared artificial intelligence tools as well as human beings. And they asked them to come up with specific activities and creative activities related to one specific object. So the higher you are, the better you are at creativity. So the question is, who is this green line? Is it a human? Is it a machine? What do you think? Actually, the best were still the human, but not any kind of human. These humans were seen as were people with experiences in creativity and creation due to their occupations, due to their expertise. And you can see that some machines were already very good at doing creativity. So at first, you can see that this capacity to create original ideas can be extremely well apprehended by machines. Well, it's not so simple, because sometimes you can ask machines to do a real simple task and they are not so good at it. So for instance, if you ask ChatGPT to write a short text without the letter E, well, surprisingly, it cannot do it. So this is an example. You will find words with the letter E, which is very surprising because it sounds super easy. And the same is true if you ask ChatGPT to write in Italian, or if you ask him to write in French. And I tried with other tools, for instance, like Mistral, which is a French Gen AI, and then they write, the machine writes without the letter E, but then you have misspelling, which is not what you are looking for, right? So the problem is that the letter E is the highest, it's the most used letter in English, in French and Italian. And the problem with this is that ChatGPT is apprehending probabilities, the probabilities of one token, one element to be associated with another element. As the letter E is everywhere, it's really hard to find a sentence without the letter E. And here, to make that work, you need a human. You mean an artist. And I don't know if you know this famous French writer, Georges Perec. He wrote a book called The Void in 1969 without the letter E. For 300 pages, you don't have the letter E, which is extremely exceptional in French, and the book still makes sense. That's an illustration of, the match between human beings and machines. And when you use Gen AI, the creativity is essentially statistical. This can be useful, this can be productive, but this can lead to many limits. So I'm going to try to explain when and how you want to use Gen AI and when this is not going to work very well. To understand that, you need to go back to the definition. What is creativity? And there are many definitions and many assumptions when it comes to the definition. Here, I'm going to propose 3 types of creativity. One type which is looking at the optimization, another one which is used and based on the deviation, and another one, the last one, which is about the subversive dynamics, which is produced by creative practices. Let's take the first one. The first one is really about how creating new ideas, which are original and useful, within a style. Artists, they have a style, and we all have a style. And in that context, machines are extremely efficient. To give you an illustration, I can refer to this case of a collaboration between Microsoft and art historians from the Netherlands. And what they did is they recreated a Rembrandt thanks to an AI. So what they had to do is to collect many, lots of data about Rembrandt, the way he was painting, the quality of the texture. Everything was composed as a big data set, and then ask AI to recreate a Rembrandt. So obviously this is very useful in a sense, but this is still a Rembrandt. You are within a style. And I guess that you already understand how this kind of solution can be extremely powerful for companies, for businesses, for organizations. So for instance, every time you're going to buy a new product on an e-commerce platform, they're going to treat you as if you were Rembrandt. And then they're going to say, okay, what is your next painting? In other words, what is your next purchase? And that's based on this logic of statistics, and they can predict what is your next move. In this context, GenAI can be a great way to increase your productivity and to reduce also the effort that you perceive when you develop a solution. That's when the machine is really helping. Then we move to another layer. And in this layer, AI is already a bit less efficient. With a deviating creativity, the idea is that you're going to take elements from different frames, which are not supposed to be combined, and then the combination may recreate, redesign the problem itself. So, for instance, I'm going to share with you this painting from a very well-known French artist, Christophe Bruneau. Christophe Bruneau is famous because he was one of the first artists in the world to hack Google already in 2002. And Christophe is playing with AI for many years now. And here you may recognize two paintings. If you know a bit of art history, you may recognize, on the one hand, the Gliniers from Millet. And this painting represents, what we mean by use value, in the sense that, this labor involves working hard to eat, because these people are just grabbing things to eat. And it represents certain perception about what we mean by labor value. And then he combined that with another famous painter, Yves Klein, who asked women to put their body on the wall with blue painting on themselves. So as you can imagine, the effort was very limited. And here the value of this painting is not about, the value of this work is not about making a lot of effort and having something which is really useful because you're gonna be able to eat. It's just about the exchange value. This painting was also famous for having blue painting at different prices. So the same painting with different prices. And here you can realize that the value in terms of usage is the same, but the exchange value is different. And through this deviation, you can discuss about value, how value evolved in history, in art history, as well as in our capitalist societies. To make this painting, Christophe used AI. He used Gen AI, and that was extremely productive because then you can just click, you don't have to paint yourself and produce many possibilities. And then as an artist, you can select and you can say, this is the best painting, or this is much more interesting. So here human is needed for at least two reasons. One is, what is your question? How do you select to combine this piece and that piece? How to find the meaningfulness of combining the two? You need to have a question in mind. You need to challenge a certain perspective. But of course, AI can help you produce different possibilities, different scenarios. Today, companies are using more and more of this combination between human and AI. So for instance, many corporations are trying to apprehend much more their CO2 emissions and the impact of CO2 emissions. Previously, they used to be focused only on the question of the economical performance, the financial dimensions. So how can you combine these two fields, the ecological one and the economical one? And in that sense, AI are extremely powerful to test and try things in a very efficient way. So for instance, there is this famous startup company in France, Carbon Fact, that can help you and help the industry in the retail sector, in the luxury sector, to limit the CO2 impact when they produce new clothes, new offers. Here, that's a deviation. You combine two fields, and AI can be extremely relevant if they are used in combination with human beings. Then I'm going to move to a third layer, where in that situation, AI is getting really limited in terms of impact and value. This is a situation where you deviate things from unfamiliar frames, but this time you are going to challenge systems of power. You are going to challenge heavily some rules, some values, which are framing what we used to do. So let me give you an example. According to you, what is the most influential artwork of modern art? Again, I don't know if you know a lot about the history of modern art, but there was a survey gathering 500 people from the art world, art historians, artists, curators, people who know a lot about art. And according to them, the most influential artwork was this one. So I don't know if you know this urinal, because it sounds very weird to say that even this is a piece of art. You know, how can this be a piece of art? Because it was not really made by the artist. It's not really aesthetical. You know, it's vulgar. So how can this piece become a piece of art? So this piece was proposed in 1917 by a French-American artist, Marcel Duchamp. So Marcel Duchamp, that you can see here with his brothers, was embedded in the art world. The brothers were already a lot connected with the cubists, and Marcel Duchamp was educated in art. He was able, you know, to paint properly. These are some examples, and you can see on these paintings how he's close to the Impressionists or to the Cubist painting. So he knew a lot about the art world. But in 1917, what happened is that they opened in New York City a new exhibition. And this exhibition was a sort of a replication of what happened in Paris at that time, meaning exhibitions without a jury. The artists at that time wanted to develop avant-gardist movements. They didn't want to follow academic rules. And to make that happen, they decided to create exhibitions with no jury. So basically, if you have a jury, you limit the possibilities. You create a constraint, and they decided, okay, no jury, you just have to pay. And if you pay for this little fee, you're going to be able to access anyone could present something. And Marcel Duchamp was part of the organizer. And he thought, okay, these people, they pretend to be very open. How far are they going to be open? Are they going to accept anything, really anything? And so that's how he decided to push for this art piece. And in this context, Marcel Duchamp was not only proposing a piece of art, he was proposing a piece of art which would challenge the very definition of art itself. And how do we define art? How do we say that this is a piece of art? This is a valuable piece of art. And I'm sure that based on your culture, based on your origin, based on your age, maybe you don't answer this question the same way. So art evolved, just like business evolved along history. And some people that we used to call the creative, they are not only improving, they are not only optimizing the what is, they are changing the rules. They are changing the very rules which are defining a field. So in this case, Marcel Duchamp, you know, he wanted to say, okay, what is a piece of art? Are you really open? Are you going to reject my piece? And actually what happened is that in 1917, when they received this piece, they decided to hide the urinal behind a curtain because for them it was too shocking, you know, too much of a shock because you work hard as an artist and you cannot understand that this guy proposed a urinal. Obviously, it was a lot of emotion. Some people found that very funny. Some found that extremely disrespectful. So many emotions. And obviously, you can see how this had a huge impact on status quo. You challenge the regular rules about what a piece of art should be. It helps you to reflect. And Marcel Duchamp didn't make any money at that time. But eventually, he became successful and he became extremely recognized because he created a new norm. He created a new system of values which is this concept of ready-made. So the ready-made, according to the MoMA, is something that is already made, and that is things that you can just display in a art context, and then the value is created with minimal changes. Maybe the title, the signature, the positioning of the object. So here, if you think of AI, how can AI help you? This is a prank, this is a joke. And how can you create this new standard, this new norm? Many research projects and research experiments about creativity and AI are focused on the existing perception, on the existing mindset about something. So people who value a lot a piece of art are usually things which are already to some extent accepted by a society. So in many ways, AI, they can help you create outputs which are solid but average. They are average, they are understandable, like the E that I mentioned in the French language or in the English language. They are appealing to the overall audience. But if you want to challenge the what is, if you want to break through and think beyond and disrupt and subvert, then AI tools have limited capacity. You have to push for something, and that's where the machines are not so good at creating improbable solutions, improbable proposals. So on average, it's not a problem. But sometimes your probable is not acceptable. If you think of ecology, the probable of humankind is not very satisfying. As you know, climate change is pushing for more and more disasters. So we need to come up with improbable proposal, improbable solutions, new rules, new values to change the way we have been doing things. And that when we need artists and creators. And on top of that, it takes time. Creativity relies on the process. It relies on interactions, reactions, resistance, supports. And Marcel Duchamp, he was not only a genius, he had many friends. And all these friends supported him. So for instance, the Arensberg family was a very rich family in the USA, and they were giving money to Duchamp to support his work and his practice. Duchamp was also a friend of famous artists like Francis Picabia, like Beatrice Woods, like André Breton. And all these people, they were able along the way to push Marcel Duchamp's idea, to push for the ready-made. And it's only in the 60s that this norm become completely accepted. So it was accepted by people like Andy Warhol, like Rauschenberg. So other artists would see Duchamp as the new master, as the new norm. But as you can see, it takes a system, curators, museums, galleries, etc., art critic to support the transition. So AI can help you think about a specific problem, but AI cannot have this capacity to connect and to develop partnerships and to develop support with all this ecosystem of players to transform the field, to transform an ecosystem. And this is happening in the business world all the time. If you think of OpenAI itself, if you think of how and who created ChatGPT, at the beginning, it was not a simple AI. We created all that. At the beginning, it was a friendship story. It was a story about people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. They launched this project through a philanthropist organization. It was not a company. It was almost like an artistic project. And they met, Elon and Peter, they met when they co-created PayPal. At the end of 1999, they launched PayPal. And the project was not only to be a creative business or to use technology in a creative way. The project was to create sort of private money because Peter Thiel is a libertarian. So he wants to limit to its maximum the power of the states. And he wanted to limit the capacity from government, regulators, central banks to control money. And he wanted people to be able to, have the capacity to create their own money and to diffuse and share money the way they wanted to. So that was the initial idea, and this is highly political, and this is highly subversive, as you can imagine. And PayPal, when it was created, faced many trials and faced a lot of opposition, of course, from traditional banks, but also from states and central banks. And this is highly subversive. But from this project, many friendships were created. So here you have a list of people who co-created, who co-funded PayPal. And when they sold the company to eBay for more than $2 billion, they were able to recreate or to invest in new companies. And here you have a list of companies which were co-created or co-invested by some of these PayPal founders. And as you can see, they are not minor, limited examples. You know, they are big successes. If you think of Airbnb, if you think of Facebook, if you think of LinkedIn, Uber, Tesla, YouTube, all these successes were co-invested and or co-funded by these PayPal alumni. Again, of course, you can have the idea of Facebook using an AI, but this is not the point. The main challenge is to experiment, to have reactions from users, from a crowd, and to find investors, and to find people sponsoring what you do, and to have people regulated what you do. And this is going way beyond AI. That's where you need to think about this combination between these two worlds, and how we need to learn from artists and subversive entrepreneurs, probably, how we can use AI in this way. But just like me, you know, I was not a great artist. I'm not a great artist. So my question is, how can you learn from these top people? How can you learn from these people who look like geniuses, who look like heroes to some people? Because we feel very far from what they can do. So the proposal that we wanted to share with you today is to share a method. Art thinking is a method to help you develop this artistic intelligence. And maybe you want to combine this artistic intelligence with artificial intelligence. Basically, this method is a way to create the improbable with certainty. So many methods in management science have been designed to optimize the standard, to be sure that you're going to have something respected a certain guideline. If you drink a soda, you know, from a famous company like Coca-Cola, you are sure that the Coca-Cola will respect a certain standard. Great artists, great entrepreneurs, as well as great scientists, they don't do that because that's boring, first. And also that's not how you're going to invent something. You need to create something which is going beyond the standard, which is going beyond the rules. So the proposition is to offer you a method that if you follow the method, you're going to be sure to create something improbable, highly unlikely, which can be weird, unexpected, but this can change your world, can change your norm, and move to something else. So I'm not going to describe precisely the method. As my colleague Benoît Heilbrun explained, we teach this art thinking method in the MBA through a workshop. This method is based on scientific results and theories and concepts. So each practice is basically something that is highly developed by creative people, artists, scientists, as well as entrepreneurs. We study them, and we propose to try to replicate what they do through a method. So to help people learn this method, we created a seminar, the Improbable Seminar, which will offer this art thinking experience to participants. So basically, we have conferences where we will present a concept, a theory, share an illustration in the art world and in the business world. For instance, we're going to present the concept of gift giving, proposed by the anthropologist Marcel Mauss, and we would illustrate this famous concept and practice in the world of art with Pablo Picasso's Bounds, and in the world of business with the PayPal Mafia that I just presented briefly. Here we are at Centre Pompidou in Paris, so sometimes we do that outside classrooms, and then we ask people who are working in group, 3 to 5 participants, to develop this practice by themselves. So they are assigned to very unusual practice. And here you have people from the executive MBA from ESCP, and these people are top executives. They are very serious professionals, but they understood that to challenge their vision of things, to change their competencies, to propose new practices, they need to change their role. They need to change their habits. So some of them decided to wear these clothes for some reasons to develop their project. And then what we do is we give them feedback. So here you have Christophe Bruno that I mentioned, who is working with us for the last 10 years. And we give feedback using a logic of agile method. I'm sure you have heard of these agile methods, which are extremely iterative. And through mutual adjustment, we give feedback so that people can adapt and evolve along the way. And at the end, they're going to present their work during an opening. So this is a case of a massive opening that we have been doing at La Bellevilloise, another very fancy place in Paris, or here at the World Arabic Institute, where people will present their work as if they were artists. And then they can receive feedback, they can exchange, they can discuss. Very often we have a lot of emotions. It can be laughs and sometimes also cries because some pieces are challenging. And that's a unique moment. That's a unique moment, but that's also a moment where you learn a lot. You learn at least three things. First, you learn to be extremely efficient because people don't know about art. They don't know about how to create a piece of art, and still they are able to make it happen within 2 days. Second, they learn a lot of soft skills because, as you can imagine, creating a piece of art with 3-5 participants, it's a lot of failures. It's a lot of conflicts. It's a lot of misunderstandings. So how do you lead? Who is supposed to lead in this kind of teams? This is key to learn to face a challenging situation. Suddenly, COVID-19, you have a lockdown. How do you work? How do you organize your team? Suddenly, you have a new war and you have a new conflict, geopolitical challenges. You're going to have to readapt what you have been doing. And people need to experience these situations of the unknown, how to learn and to practice something in this unknown situation. And third, obviously, you transform yourself because you realize that you felt about yourself as a maybe random, typical engineer, but suddenly, no, you can be creative. You can create something which is highly unexpected and which makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, and that's valuable because, of course, we have some criteria to assess a piece of art. There are so many ways to create a piece of art. If you come from India, this is probably not the same meaningfulness when it comes to art. What is meaningful in France or in India about art? Maybe there are many differences. So here we focus on 4 dimensions that we believe are relevant in our world, in our society. So first, it has to be improbable. You cannot find it easily on Google, and it is very difficult to predict. Even for the creators, they are surprised by what they do. Second, what you do will challenge rules, norms, values, systems that frame the way you work. A lot of this, many people say you need to think outside of the box. Well, this is exactly that. You need to challenge the box and go beyond it. Third, it has to be embedded. And that's very important because machines can be very good, but they are not connected with you, with your authenticity, with your identity, with your values. And we know more and more that companies, they want people who are engaged. They believe in what they do, but it makes sense. And this is something that you need to learn. But how can you connect yourself with your work is not an obvious situation, and it's not an obvious scenario. And fourth, it has to be efficient. We don't have much time. We don't have so much resources. So how can you create impact with minimum resources? And when you think of that, Marcel Duchamp was probably the most efficient artist ever because with one urinal that he bought in a store, he is still very famous today. And he had a huge impact on the art world. So that's impressive. So now I'm going to share with you 3-4 examples of pieces produced during an art thinking experience. So this was created in January at the D School at Stanford University. So we had this seminar recently, and the students, they wanted to discuss about how do we perceive animals. If human beings are supposed to be equal, it's not the same for animals because crocodiles are protected in the USA. You cannot eat a crocodile. But this is not the case for many other animals, like a sheep or a pig or a cow. So what they propose is, what if we deviate an alligator skin, and then suddenly we have a new image about these animals? Do we want to eat them? How do we respect them? How do we protect them? So this piece was about this question of meat consumption, and how do we protect or not animals. This one was much more avant-garde in the sense that it was created in 2013 to discuss about how we use platforms like Airbnb, Uber, BlaBlaCar, and so on and so forth. And on these platforms, you always give a rating to your peer. You say this was a good experience, this was a bad experience, and you give some comments and some stars. The students, they thought, okay, what if we aggregate all these ratings to create a global trust rank? Because if you have good grades, good ratings, it means that I can trust you. And obviously, this aggregation changed the way you perceive people beyond informal interaction. And maybe you had the chance to watch Black Mirror, the British series, that present an episode just like that. And as you may know, in many countries, insurance are using more and more this kind of data to change their policy or the money, the fee, sorry, for your policy. And you also have the social credit in China, which is working a bit like that. So in art, because you can be radical, and because in country like France, you don't go to jail if you are radical because you are an artist, you can project things, you can think about the future, you can think about what could happen next. And that's wonderful to reflect on the situation, to reflect on what you want to do, or maybe what you don't want to do. Maybe a last example to also show how these things can be very funny, but also very reflective, pushing to reflection. Maybe that you know that in France, whenever you go to the toilet, you're going to use drinkable water. And this is a bit crazy because we have more and more droughts in France. So using drinkable water to flush the toilet is less and less relevant. So the students, they wanted to discuss that. And what they did is they proposed to drink Ricard, which is a very famous alcohol that you put with water. So you would arrive at the opening, and then they would serve you the drinkable water of the toilet to drink Ricard. And obviously, this is not statistics. This is an emotional experience that you will never remember, what you will never forget, right? Because this is so powerful as a symbol that you will think about that again and again. And then you perceive this problem in a very different way. So art can be also extremely powerful when it comes to changing people's mind, people's vision, people's perception. And that's also why many dictators censor and control artists and art, because there is a huge power in these pieces to change the way people think and act. So art is not just for artists. It's extremely powerful to move and transform societies, to change imaginaries, and to challenge the way we have been doing things. So in that sense, our thinking is sort of social algorithm to be able to apprehend artistic intelligence. Maybe for dummies, because of course, if you are advanced in creation, you don't need that. But if you want to explore, if you want to do more, if you want to complement machines, because machines are very good at optimizing. So what is your complementary skills? Maybe the emotional part, maybe the social interactions, maybe the body become extremely important, become critical. So if you are already an engineer, developing this other competence, this other method is critical. So to conclude, let me share this prompt. Imagine you have this painting and you ask a prompt, you ask an AI to create the perfect shadow for this woman. This is what you're going to have. I'm unable to generate an image with nudity. This is a good example of the limitation of AI because they are not very well, they don't understand nuanced in cultural references, because that in art, nudity is accepted. This is part of art history, but machines are not very good at that because they control nudity. We see sometimes at pornography, and they would produce something like that, which is not very interesting compared to this piece, which is a famous painting from a Belgian painter, René Magritte, and this is the improbable. Nobody would have expected this shadow of a bird. This is not what a machine can do. Only a creative mind would propose something like that, which challenge some conventions and rules. So to end, I would like to share this sentence from Stéphane Mallarmé, a very famous poet, who discussed the work of a very famous Impressionist artist, Edouard Manet. The artist's aim is to create each work anew, retaining as few memories of former methods as possible. And as you know, Gen AI, they are based, these tools, on machine learning. Machines are there to learn, not to unlearn. And the idea is to help you unlearn, developing this artistic intelligence to go beyond what we have been doing and to move to another space. If you want to be integrated in a full-time MBA at ESCP, this is your goal. But my hope is that when you're going to join the full-time MBA, the program will offer you multiple possibilities, new worlds, new perspectives. And I hope that this artistic intelligence can expand the capacities to go beyond what you have been expected. And that's the beauty of human beings. And this is what is left. And that's not nothing. I thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have some.
Sylvain, many thanks for this fascinating presentation. I think now I would like to be a participant in the MBA program to follow the seminar. Just one thing, maybe you didn't know that when you mentioned Georges Perec, The Void, and when the book was published, I think it was 1953, it was so well done that most critics, they didn't observe that there was no E in the book. So that means that's something a machine could never be able to do.
That's true. That's true. That's a good comment. Thank you, Benoit.
Okay, so thank you very much, and also for the connection with Marcel Duchamp, who really was the mentor of Andy Warhol and pop art, because Andy Warhol always said refers to Marcel Duchamp. Okay,
True.
So now I leave the floor to I suppose there will be many questions, but once again, so many thanks for this presentation.
Yes, thank you, Professor, for this lovely masterclass. So we are going to open the floor for questions, but while you type in your questions, I would also like to introduce that we have one of our current students, Eduardo, joining in as well. So Eduardo, would you like to just quickly introduce yourself? And if the audience has any questions for you, for your experience, they can do as well. Eduardo, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you, Sylvain. It was very nice to hear about all the stories. I'll be quick. So I'm Italian. I come from an engineering background, and I've been working for consulting for the past 5 years. And I decided to have a broader vision of international exposure, and then I decided to follow my MBA here at the SCP, and I'm truly glad I chose this path, because internationality here is at the core, and also it gives you a lot of leadership skills that are involved in our future roles as a managers in our let's say dream job. So I'll be here to answer your questions or whatever you want to talk about. Thank you very much for the introduction.
Amazing, thank you. All right, so while we have the audience type in their questions, I have a question for you, Professor, as well. And the question is that when it comes to formulating business strategy, how do you think companies can balance data-driven decision making that comes from, let's say, the generative AI part, along with human intuition and creativity, which is the core of the artistic intelligence?
Yes, so to answer this question, I'd like to share this piece from Claude Catelin. And this person that you can see here on this screen is working very hard. He's extremely dedicated in his task. And many top managers are working really hard. But as you can see, the way he framed the problem is not relevant. So and many companies or many people, maybe me sometimes, we are in this situation. But you don't realize, we don't understand that we are not framing the problem properly. So I would say that sometimes, when you see that your performance are decreasing and decreasing and decreasing again, well, you can work harder and harder, but maybe the problem is not about that. The problem is about the norm that you have within your company. And then the question is, how can you change the very values that are driving what you have been doing? So This could come through this logic of ambidexterity. I don't know if you are familiar with this notion. So of course, you know that for right and left hands. And companies, they have to exploit their current activities, optimize their profits, optimize their margins, and be extremely efficient in what they do, and be always excellent. But if you always optimize, at some point you will become obsolete because of new technologies, because of new contexts. So you also need to explore. And this is another logic. It's a logic where you're going to have to face failures. It's a logic where you're going to have to do things that you are not used to do. And this organizational ambidexterity helps you learn to go beyond the what is. So if you think of companies like ESCP, for instance, if they are able to sustain, it's because they have been, at the same time exploiting activities and exploring. This is the case of companies also like Nokia, even if they had a big hit with the new competitive landscape for phones. At the very beginning, they were in the wood industry, so far from what they were doing. So it's this capacity to move from, and the risk of AI and this data-driven logic is to keep optimizing things. And that's going to be a problem at some point. If you think of BlackBerry, for instance, if we stay within the cell phones, they didn't understand that the challenge was not to sell minutes, but to sell data. And obviously, if you don't know how to change the frame of the problem, you won't go very far, even if you hard, extremely hard.
Right, lovely. Thank you for that answer as well. So we will now invite the audience to ask any questions that they have. Please remember you can ask questions to the professors here or to Eduardo about his experience, or if you have questions related to the program, admissions process, etc., then you can also ask those questions to me as well. So we'll just give a minute. All right, we have a question coming in for you, Professor, from Louis, if you want to take a look at the Q&A.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So about controversial elements. And it's true that Duchamp was okay to face harsh reactions sometimes. And I think that you can observe that a lot in entrepreneurship or in politics, as you know. So I think that if you don't have any controversy, it means that you are not doing anything new. If you are really doing something new, people are going to challenge what you do. So it doesn't mean that you're going to have to be exposed like crazy. There are heuristics, methods, logics to be protected. So for instance, when you start something very new, don't show it to everybody, because that's when you're going to have some problems. Don't show it to your big boss. That is really key for you. You want to show it to people which are close to you, to get first feedback, to improve. And when you have something which is working a little bit more, then you can be exposed. And you know that some people will not like that. But because some people don't like that, some people will like it, and they will support you because they really have a problem and they understand that this is valuable. This is promising. So maybe just one minor element that would share on this is this logic of affordable loss. Many top managers think of profit optimization, how to maximize your profit. This is a very bad way to think when you want to create and explore. So the affordable loss is simple. Basically, whenever you do something, you are ready to lose. Imagine that you say, okay, I'm going to take 3 months to try something. If it doesn't work, you lose 3 months, So how much are you ready to lose is a good element to decide how much money, how much time, how much energy you're going to invest in what you do.
Right, thank you for that answer as well. And thank you, Louis, for your question. There are no more questions for now. Just going to give it another minute. Louis just has mentioned that has given a thank you to you, Professor, for these insights, and said that affordable loss is really interesting.
So if you want to know more about affordable loss, I recommend you to read the theory from Sarasvathy. who is the last PhD student from Herbert Simon, who, as you may know, was a Nobel Prize in economics. And Saraswati come up with this theory of effectual reasoning. So basically, is how top entrepreneurs think and decide about their activities, and they opposed effectual causal reasoning and causal reasoning. Very often, when you are in a school or when you are in a company, everything you do is based on a goal. But again, if you are trying to explore, if you are trying to create something, you don't even know what you are doing. If you think of Pablo Picasso or others, they were not sure about what they are doing. Because if you know what you are achieving for, then it's not creation, it's optimization. So some people thought about heuristics, rules, ways of thinking to work as a professional without a predetermined, without a stabilized goal. And that's a big challenge. And again, very often artificial intelligence, they are not so good to think without a clear assigned goal.
Right. Another question coming in for you, Professor. Where do you see the intersection and relationship between art and AI going forward, say a few decades from now?
Yeah, so it's hard to predict things. And artists and creators, they don't try to predict things, they try to transform things the way they are. So when I started working with this artistic practice, my assumption was that the more we're going to have machines, the more we're going to be working like artists. The more we're going to need to apprehend human beings fully. And I remember reading this quote from the famous entrepreneur Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, who said that, at school, you should be teaching to kids music, sports, everything that machines are not so good at in terms of, embodiment. Machines, they don't have a body, they don't have a soul, they don't have friends. So more and more, companies are going to look for people who can complement machines. So you need to think about all these things where machines are not extremely powerful at. And I believe that more and more within schools, within the education systems, we're going to have people who need to be trained in things which are way beyond the cognitive. The rationality, the cognitive side, still very important, but that's not enough. And you want to complement that. And I think that when you look at the practices and the division of what we have been doing, that's a sign. Today, and all the programs at ESCP have this art thinking experience. And it's diffused more and more. And I'm not the only one. So art-based practices in business schools are skyrocketing. There are more and more of these practices. And you can also discover more and more practice related to yoga or other things. And I believe that this is an answer of human race, of human beings towards machines. So for me, it's only the beginning.
Right, lovely. Thank you. And Vinita, thank you for your question. I hope that answers your query as well. Lovely. We have the last 5 minutes. If there are any more pending questions about the program, about the masterclass, about admission, student experience, please feel free to drop in your questions.
Maybe if we have no further question, I just want to refer to a book. So we had the pleasure to welcome Scott Hartley at one of our sessions. So Scott is an MBA from Stanford University and he's a top investors, VC, venture capitalist. And he wrote this book, The Fuzzy and the Techie. So these terms are used at Stanford University to divide the world in two. So the techies, the engineers, the mathematicians on one side, and the fuzzies, people doing political science, anthropology, art. And basically what he claims is that in the digital world, we need these liberal arts. And when you look at the training of many top founders, they were not trained in computer science, And if you look at top executives in large corporations from the tech world, they are trained in philosophy, in history, in sociology, in anthropology. So machines, they don't understand, humans. So you need to have these skills heavily to apprehend these challenges. And basically, our thinking is a way to reintegrate much more these dimensions in class.
Right. Great, thank you so much. Then I think we do not have any more questions coming in. Professor Benoit, do you have any final words?
Well, I would like to thank you for your attention. You are all very involved because nobody left the session, so it's very impressive. I was really impressed by the level of this conference, okay, which really gives many insights in many directions. So thank you very much, Sylvain.
Well,
and,
thank you all, and I hope you will be joining the session, next year,
Yes.
and that you could create your own piece of art.
Yes, you will. And so do not hesitate to come back to us should you have any questions. Okay, thanks a lot. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone. See you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you very much.
Bye.
Bye. See you next time.
See you.